At first glance, it looked like any other cent minted in the mid-90s. Copper-plated zinc, familiar Lincoln portrait, the Lincoln Memorial on the back. Nothing that screams fortune. But here's where the story takes its first twist. This penny carried a minting error so rare, even seasoned collectors doubted it existed. A tiny imperfection, nearly invisible to the naked eye, had transformed it from a single cent into one of the most sought-after modern coins in U.S. history. You see, in 1994, the Denver Mint produced billions of pennies. But in the process, a handful were struck using a misaligned die that caused faint doubling on the date and lettering. Combine that with a pristine, untouched condition, what collectors call MS-70 perfection, and you have a once-in-a-lifetime combination. Most people miss it. Most people never even notice. And that's exactly why it's worth so much. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This single penny, plucked from pocket change, made its way to a small coin show in the Midwest. A dealer noticed the odd strike and insisted on sending it to a grading service. Weeks later, the results came back: mint state perfection, confirmed error, and the D mint mark from Denver. Word spread like wildfire. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. The bidding war that followed was nothing short of cinematic. Offers climbed past six figures in a matter of hours. And when the final gavel fell at auction, the price tag was an eye-watering $1.1 million. A penny, a single cent, now more valuable than a luxury home. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: more of these coins could be out there. If one slipped through, there could be others hiding in jars, drawers, and coin rolls across America. Every time you hand over a penny, every time you get change back at a store, you could be letting a fortune pass through your fingers. One collector told me he's been searching for over 20 years for another one like it. He's gone through hundreds of thousands of coins, always hoping, always wondering. And every so often, a whisper surfaces, a rumor of another 1994 D with that same doubling, that same untouched luster. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The doubling is subtle, often around the date and liberty, and only obvious under magnification. If the surfaces are flawless, no scratches, no discoloration, and the luster is bright and even, you might be looking at a life-changing discovery. But remember, condition is everything. Even the rarest error drops in value if it's been damaged or worn. So the next time you have a penny in your hand, don't just glance at it, study it. Look for the D mint mark under the date. Check for any unusual doubling. If it's in uncirculated condition, get it examined by a professional grading service. Because one man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And lightning could strike twice. Somewhere, sitting in a forgotten jar or lying in the bottom of a purse, the next $1 million 1994 D penny is waiting to be found. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. The story begins like most great coin tales do, in complete obscurity. For decades, it slipped through countless hands. Pockets, purses, cash registers, nobody noticed its secret. Until one man, late at night, emptied his change onto the kitchen counter. He had no idea his life was about to change forever. There's something almost poetic about it. The 1984 no-mint mark penny wasn't supposed to be rare. In fact, millions rolled out of the U.S. Mint that year. But in the hidden world of coin collecting, it's not the date alone that matters, it's the flaw. The tiny, almost invisible mistake that separates an ordinary coin from a life-changing treasure. And in this case, that flaw was hiding in plain sight. Collectors who've seen it say your heart skips a beat when you notice it for the first time. It's the kind of error that only happens once in a generation, a mistake so rare, dealers are scrambling to get their hands on it. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This humble penny, the kind you'd find wedged between couch cushions, crossed the auction block and sold for a staggering $1.2 million. The room went silent. Even seasoned collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. You might be wondering, what could possibly make a penny worth more than a sports car, more than a house, more than most people make in a lifetime? The answer is locked in its details. The 1984 no-mint mark penny has a unique error that only the sharpest eyes will spot, a doubling in its design so subtle, you could hold it for years without noticing. One lucky finder almost didn't. His coin sat in a jar for months. One evening, curious, he picked it up under the light and something caught his eye. He leaned closer, his pulse quickening. The letters looked strange, like they were almost vibrating. That was the moment he realized. This wasn't a normal penny. This was his $1 million miracle. These coins are still out there. They don't glow. They don't feel heavier. They hide in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows exactly what to look for. That's why collectors search rolls of pennies for hours, day after day, chasing that one moment of discovery. But before you start tearing apart your change, there's something you need to know. Not every 1984 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The key is spotting the doubling, most often seen on the word Liberty and on Lincoln's eye. Real experts use a magnifying glass, because the difference between a common penny and $1 million treasure can be thinner than a human hair. Dealers have seen people bring in coins thinking they struck gold, only to walk away disappointed. The errors have to be crisp, clear, and undeniable. If it's too worn, or the doubling is faint, it won't fetch those sky-high prices. But if it's sharp? If it matches the rare variety? That's when jaws drop and checkbooks open. Imagine the feeling. Standing in an auction hall, your coin on display, the bidding climbing higher and higher. 20,000, 50, 200,000, and then the hammer falls at over $1 million. You don't just walk away with money, you walk away with a story you'll tell for the rest of your life. And maybe, just maybe, that story is waiting in your pocket right now. Somewhere in the folds of your wallet, the bottom of your glove compartment, or the jar on your kitchen counter could be a 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny with that magical doubling. One coin. One discovery. One moment that could change everything. So here's the challenge. Check your pennies. Look closely, especially at 1984. Search for that doubling, that telltale sign. Don't assume it's ordinary just because it's small. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. If you want, I can also extend this into a fully fleshed 10-minute version with more suspense beats, cliffhangers, and richer auction storytelling so it truly fills the time and maximizes watch retention. Would you like me to do that? This wasn't just any Lincoln penny. This was a 1964 Denver minted coin, a piece of copper that carried a minting mystery few people on Earth had ever noticed. And for one lucky finder, it became a life-changing miracle. Back in 1964, the Denver Mint was running at full steam, producing billions of pennies for everyday circulation. Most were flawless, mass-produced, and forgettable. But hidden in that mountain of copper were a handful of mistakes. Misaligned dies, doubled features, rare variations in the metal itself. These errors weren't caught. They slipped silently into circulation, tucked into grocery change, parking meters, and piggy banks. Years passed. Most were spent, lost, or melted down. But one coin, just one of these elusive errors, resurfaced decades later in a small-town coin shop. The owner almost dismissed it. To the naked eye, it looked like every other penny. But under magnification, the truth emerged. Collectors were stunned. The D mint mark wasn't in its usual position. There was doubling on the date, subtle, but unmistakable. And the surface revealed a strange texture, the kind of flaw that only happens in a tiny fraction of mint runs. Experts confirmed it. This was one of the rarest surviving 1964 D Lincoln pennies in existence. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a high-profile auction, bidding started modestly. A few $100s, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Dealers were leaning forward, phones were buzzing, the room was electric. Within minutes, the number had jumped past 100,000. And it didn't stop there. When the hammer finally fell, the final price was so high it made headlines. Roughly $1.3 million for a single cent. The story spread like wildfire. People were pulling jars of pennies out from closets, rushing to check their change. But here's the twist: finding one isn't just about luck. You have to know exactly what to look for. And most people miss it. The most valuable 1964 D pennies share a few key traits. First, examine the date carefully under good light or magnification. If you see doubling on the 1964, especially on the 6 and 4, you could be holding a treasure. Next, check the mint mark. On rare era coins, the D is slightly misplaced, sometimes looking higher, lower, or off-center. And finally, feel the surface. Some of these rare pennies have an unusual texture or a faint, grainy finish caused by planchet errors during production. But here's the kicker: condition matters. Coins with little wear, strong details, and original luster can skyrocket in value. That's why some coins sell for hundreds, and others for over $1 million. Imagine it: a penny you've ignored for years sitting in a jar could pay off your mortgage, wipe out debt, or even fund your retirement. That's not just a coin, that's a hidden fortune. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't toss those pennies aside. Look closely. That ordinary copper disc might carry a once-in-a-lifetime secret, because somewhere out there, another 1964 D Lincoln penny is waiting to be found. And when it is, the next headline could be yours. It started, as so many great stories do, with a stroke of pure luck. A man in Illinois was cleaning out an old coffee can of change that had sat forgotten in his garage for over a decade. Dust covered the coins, most of them common, until one penny caught his eye. No mint mark. A strange shimmer under the light. Something about it felt different. He could have ignored it, but instead, curiosity pulled him in. When he brought it to a local coin dealer, the reaction was immediate. The dealer's eyes widened, his breath caught. He leaned forward, whispering, "Do you have any idea what you're holding?" The man didn't. But within days, this ordinary-looking penny would set the coin world buzzing. You see, the 1989 no-mint mark Lincoln penny hides a fascinating secret. It was never meant to exist this way. Most pennies from that year were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which typically omits a mint mark, but this particular variety contained an almost invisible minting flaw, one so rare, only a tiny handful have ever been confirmed. And because collectors thrive on scarcity, each surviving example is treated like a once-in-a-lifetime prize. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This forgotten penny was sent to auction, where fierce bidding erupted. Collectors were calling in from all over the country, their voices tense, their offers climbing higher by the second. 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And still, the bids kept coming. In the end, the hammer fell at an astonishing $1.40 million. It comes down to perfection in the imperfection. On the surface, it's just a 1-cent coin. But under magnification, experts spotted crisp, flawless details that almost never survive circulation, sharp lettering, an immaculate strike, and that subtle yet unmistakable error that set it apart from millions of ordinary coins. Dealers are still whispering about it to this day, chasing the possibility of finding another. And here's the twist that keeps collectors up at night: this coin is not locked away in some museum. It's out there somewhere. It could be sitting in a jar on someone's kitchen counter. It could be rattling around in the cup holder of a used car. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and the same could happen to you. But most people miss the signs. They see a penny without a mint mark and assume it's worthless. They spend it without a second glance. That's the mistake you can't afford to make. The real treasure lies in the details: flawless surfaces, full original luster, and that razor-sharp strike from a die that barely saw use before being retired. If you ever come across a 1989 penny without a mint mark, don't rush to spend it. Hold it up to the light. Look for perfection: no scratches, no heavy wear, and every letter and number clear enough to cut glass. And if it looks like it just rolled off the mint floor, you might be staring at your own ticket to the kind of payday most people only dream about. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. I can expand this into a full 10-minute pacing with cliffhangers and dramatic pauses so it fully grips the audience and builds suspense without losing engagement. Do you want me to write that full expanded version next? The owner had no idea. They were about to toss it back into circulation, to be spent on a cup of coffee. But fate had other plans. A sharp-eyed friend, a hobbyist collector, spotted something most people would overlook. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, in 1972, the Philadelphia Mint, the one that doesn't put a mint mark on coins, was pushing Lincoln pennies out in staggering numbers. Billions of them. Most were perfectly ordinary. But a tiny fraction, a fraction so small it's like finding one grain of sand on an entire beach, came out with something unusual, something invisible to the untrained eye. A doubling. A rare, dramatic minting error that transformed a 1-cent coin into a collector's holy grail. Collectors call it a doubled die obverse. On these rare 1972 no-mint mark pennies, the doubling is so strong you can see it without a magnifying glass. Look at the date. The numbers seem to echo, like they've been stamped twice. Look at the words, Liberty and In God We Trust. They almost shimmer, with letters doubled in bold relief. It's not damage, it's not wear, it's a mistake that happened in the mint itself, a mistake the government didn't catch before millions of coins rolled out into the world. But here's the twist. Only a tiny handful survive in pristine, untouched condition. And in the world of coin collecting, condition is king. One of these flawless 1972 double-dyed pennies crossed the auction block, and when the hammer fell, the final price made headlines. Well over $1 million. That's right, a single penny, the kind you might ignore on the sidewalk, sold for enough to buy a luxury home. Dealers scrambled. Phone calls lit up. People dug through jars, drawers, and shoeboxes full of coins, hoping lightning would strike. But this was no easy find. Most of the valuable ones had been scooped up by sharp-eyed collectors decades ago. Still, the hunt was on. Because as any coin hunter will tell you, the dream isn't just about money, it's about the thrill of finding treasure where nobody else thinks to look. One story still circulates in the collector community. A man in Pennsylvania was helping his father clean out the attic. They found an old metal box filled with coins his grandfather had saved from the early 70s. He almost took them to the bank, just to get rid of them. But a single penny caught his attention. It looked different. A trip to a coin dealer confirmed his suspicion. That coin later sold for enough to pay off his mortgage and send his kids to college. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yet the real magic is that coins like this still turn up today. Every so often, a grocery store clerk notices something strange in the till. A child pays for candy and unknowingly hands over a fortune. The news spreads like wildfire. Collectors whisper, "Could there be more out there?" And the answer is always, yes. Here's where you need to pay attention. If you have a 1972 penny with no mint mark, meaning there's no small letter under the date, flip it over and check the front carefully. Look for that doubling. On the date, the 1, 9, 7, and 2 should each look as if they'd been stamped twice. The letters in Liberty will look thicker, shadowed. In God We Trust will have a ghostly second outline. This is not a trick of the light. It's the calling card of the $1 million variety. But beware. Many people confuse worn-out coins or damaged ones for the real thing. Scratches, machine doubling, or coin wear can fool the eye. True doubled dies from 1972 have bold, clean, separated lines, almost like two images layered on top of each other. If you're unsure, take it to a professional coin grader before spending it or selling it, because here's the truth: the difference between 1 cent and $1.5 million is in the details most people never notice. And those details could be hiding in your home right now. That jar of change on the dresser. That dusty shoebox in the closet. That coffee tin in the kitchen. The world is full of ordinary pennies. But a few are extraordinary. A few are miracles in copper, carrying with them the story of a mistake that became a treasure. And if you're lucky enough to hold one in your hand, you'll feel it. The weight of history, the thrill of discovery, and the realization that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest value. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss those pennies aside. Look closer. Because the next time someone says, "It's just a penny," you'll know better. Somewhere out there, one of those 1972 no mint mark pennies is still waiting to be found, and it's worth over $1 million. It started like any other day. A man in Pennsylvania emptied his change onto the kitchen counter. He was ready to dump it into a jar, until something caught his eye. This penny felt different. The color was slightly off, the edges sharper. And then, the strangest thing, there was no mint mark at all. No tiny letter under the date. Nothing. Just the number. 1999. Staring back at him like a silent clue, most people wouldn't think twice. No mint mark? Probably normal, right? But for serious collectors, this was the first sign of something extraordinary. See, by 1999, nearly every Lincoln penny from Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco should carry a mark, a PD or S. Yet here was one with none at all. And that missing detail opened the door to a mystery that stunned experts. Rumors began to swirl. Was this a rare minting error? Could it be an experimental strike that never should have left the mint? Or was it a one-in-a-billion fluke that slipped into circulation completely unnoticed? Collectors whispered about a handful of similar coins, each selling for more than a luxury sports car. But this one would go even further. At a small auction, under bright lights and hushed voices, the bidding started modestly. A few $1,000s. Then tens of thousands. The air in the room tightened. Dealers leaned forward in their seats. The man who found it stood frozen, watching strangers fight for a coin he'd almost spent on a cup of coffee. And when the hammer finally fell, the room erupted. This 1999 no-mint mark penny had just sold for nearly $1.6 million. That's where the real secret lies. It wasn't just a missing mint mark. Under a magnifying glass, this coin revealed microscopic details that ordinary eyes would miss. The strike was unusually sharp, the lettering crisp, the finish unlike any regular penny from 1999. Some experts believe it was struck on a planchet meant for another coin entirely. Others think it was part of a private test, a trial piece accidentally released into circulation. Most people have no idea these errors even exist. That means they're spending them, losing them, dropping them into tip jars every single day. Which is why serious collectors are constantly scanning their change, hunting for that one life-changing discovery. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. After news of the $1 million sale broke, pawn shops, coin dealers, and even grocery store clerks started checking every 1999 penny they touched. For weeks, stories poured in of hopeful finds, but almost all were ordinary coins. The true treasures, it turns out, are impossibly rare. Finding one is like catching lightning in a bottle. But when it happens, it changes everything. So how can you tell if you have one? First, check the date. It must be 1999. Then, look just below the year. If there's no mint mark, no P, no D, no S, set it aside immediately. Next, examine the strike. Is the lettering unusually sharp? The rim perfectly defined? Does the color or luster seem different from other pennies? If so, you might have something worth more than a house. Not every no mint mark penny is rare. Many are ordinary Philadelphia issues, and spotting the true $1 million errors takes a trained eye and sometimes professional grading. The difference between a regular coin and a record breaker can be microscopic, but the reward is massive. You're holding a penny that could erase your mortgage, pay for your kids' college, or fund the retirement of your dreams. All from something that cost you a single cent. It's not just luck. It's about knowing what to look for, and never ignoring the little details. Because the truth is, the next 1999 no-mint mark penny worth $1.6 million might not be hiding in a vault. It might be hiding in your kitchen drawer right now. And if you let it slip through your fingers, you'll never know what you just gave away. The story begins quietly, almost invisibly, like the coin itself. In 2006, the U.S. Mint struck billions of pennies. To the untrained eye, they all looked identical. But somewhere, in the controlled chaos of minting, a small, hidden mistake slipped through the machinery. This wasn't just any error. It was the kind that turns a coin from pocket change into a life-altering fortune. But what happened next stunned even the most seasoned collectors. One of these rare error pennies was casually spent in a grocery store. The cashier dropped it into a drawer, never noticing its secret. Weeks later, a sharp-eyed collector spotted it in a handful of change and froze. Something was different. That was the beginning of a discovery that would shake the hobby. Here's where the mystery deepens. The 2006 penny with no mint mark isn't just about the missing letter under the date. The error is tied to a combination of conditions: an unusual die strike, a pristine surface, and in some cases, an almost flawless red luster that survived untouched for nearly 2 decades. It's as if fate protected it, waiting for the right person to find it. Dealers were stunned when the first one crossed an auction block. The bidding started modestly, but with every raise of a paddle, the tension grew. Collectors whispered, eyes wide, as the number climbed higher and higher. By the time the gavel fell, the final price was enough to buy a house, a luxury car, and still have money left over: $1.7 million. These coins aren't locked away in vaults. They're out there. In change jars. In old piggy banks. Sitting at the bottom of drawers where you toss spare coins without thinking. And every time someone overlooks one, the odds of it landing in your hands get a little higher. One man's discovery is proof of that. He almost spent it at a gas station. But a faint, almost imperceptible detail caught his attention: the missing mint mark under the date. He did a double take, compared it to another penny, and his heart began to race. Within weeks, he was on the phone with an auction house. Months later, his life looked nothing like it did before. And yet, many collectors walk right past this treasure because they think the missing mint mark is just wear or damage. That mistake could cost them $1 million. A true 2006 no mint mark error isn't just missing the letter, it's struck differently. The edges are sharp. The fields, that's the flat area, are smooth and clean. And the color is rich, often with that fresh from the mint red tone. This is why experts say finding one feels like a lightning strike. The odds are slim, but the reward is life-changing. Every coin you check could be the one. Every handful of change could hold the same hidden fortune that stunned the auction room and made history. So here's the takeaway. Check every 2006 penny you come across. Look closely under the date. No mint mark? Perfect condition? Sharp strike? Don't spend it. Protect it. Get it graded. Because the difference between a regular penny and $1 million treasure is just one small, easy-to-miss detail. At first glance, a 2016 D. Lincoln penny seems like just another coin you'd get in your spare change. Billions were made. They pass through vending machines, sit in couch cushions, and pile up in old jars. But buried among those billions is a version so rare, so mysterious, that most collectors only dream of seeing one in person. The story of this coin's rise to $1 million status begins in the U.S. Mint in Denver. Somewhere along the production line, a mistake happened, the kind of mistake the mint tries to keep quiet. The rumor is that a batch was struck using a die that wasn't supposed to be used for circulation. Some say it was a prototype die. Others whisper that it was an experimental composition, a metal blend that was never officially approved. Whatever the truth, only a handful of these coins slipped into the wild. One of these rare 2016 D pennies surfaced at a small coin shop in Arizona. The seller didn't know what he had. He'd pulled it from pocket change just days before. The dealer saw something odd, a tiny doubling in the date, a mint mark that seemed ever so slightly misplaced, and a subtle, almost imperceptible shimmer in the surface. Under magnification, it was clear this was not a standard penny. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Word spread. Phone calls lit up between high-profile collectors and auction houses. The coin was authenticated, graded in pristine condition, and sent to auction. The opening bid already had people holding their breath: $50,000. Then the numbers climbed. 100,000, $500,000, and finally, when the hammer dropped, $1.8 million, collectors were shocked. Some didn't believe it at first. But the more experts examined it, the more certain they became. This was a once-in-a-lifetime minting anomaly, the kind of find that turns spare change into a fortune. Here's where the suspense builds. If one of these coins ended up in a man's pocket from a random cash transaction, how many more could still be out there? So what makes it so valuable? For this particular 2016 D penny, you need to look for three main things. First, the mint mark. On the rare variety, the D is slightly misaligned. It appears just a fraction higher or lower than normal. Second, check the date under a magnifying glass. Look for signs of doubling, especially on the 2 and the 6. It's subtle, but unmistakable once you've seen it. Third, the coin's surface. These rare ones have a distinct, almost satin-like luster that doesn't match typical circulation strikes. Thousands of people mistake ordinary pennies with minor scratches or wear for this rare variety. Condition matters. A coin with damage loses almost all its value, even if it has the right error. That's why if you think you've found one, never clean it, never polish it, and get it authenticated before showing it to anyone. Imagine this: you're sorting through a jar of coins, and your eyes land on a 2016 D penny. It's just sitting there, dull among the others. But then, that little voice in your head says, "What if?" That's how discoveries like this start. Ordinary people, ordinary days, until the extraordinary shows up. Some of the greatest finds in coin history weren't made by dealers or experts. They were made by someone just like you, spotting a tiny difference that most people overlook. And that's the magic of coin collecting. Every piece of change has a story, and some stories are worth more than $1 million. Somewhere, right now, another one of these rare 2016 D pennies could be hiding in a cash register, a forgotten piggy bank, or maybe even in your wallet. And the next person to find it could change their life overnight. So the next time you get change, don't just toss it aside. Hold it in your hand. Look closer. Feel the weight of possibility. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.